And now we get to talk about something fun. So this is the other thing that's been going on the rest of the majority of this week. So I have let's bring this back up here. Again, let me know if you guys like this new format for the podcast. I'd be very interested in your feedback. He should, but he is a pussy. Yes, well, Greg Wilmot already taught us that. Phone died after seeing Whoopi dressed like the... Well, I mean, I can't say I feel bad for you, J-Rock, but, well, she is the Michelin Man. I'm not even going to say the Stay Puft one because that's the insult. That's an insult to Stay Puft Marshmallows. Because not only is she fat, she's unattractive at that point, too. I can actually say at one point, Whoopi Goldberg was attractive. To some extent, she was attractive. She ain't that anymore. I'm sure those G4 checks are very nice. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. Until Comcast stops paying. And then they won't be. So let's go ahead and get into the next story here. We have Peter Dinklage's Snow White complaint blasted by dwarf performers. He's trying to take roles away. How many people have been following this story and just laughing at the irony of it? Despite Peter Dinklage's recent attempt to position himself as a progressive champion by railing against the continued depiction of Snow White's 7 dwarf companions as dwarves, a number of other dwarf performers, including WWE star Dylan Hornswoggle Postal, Hornswoggle, is actually calling him out. Believe the Hollywood actor's commitment to being woke could threaten their livelihoods and ruin opportunities for others like them. I can't remember which network it was. It was probably either CNN or Fox News, one of the two. They actually had Hornswoggle on. They had the illegitimate son of Vince McMahon on there. And I get it, dwarf performer, but it was the greatest thing, in my opinion, to have Hornswoggle be the guy who's arguing against Peter Dinklage. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy that happened. British actor Chun Tan, who had starred as a number of Snow White's companions in various productions across England, told the Daily Mail that he felt Dinklage's comments were hypocritical, as a lot of my colleagues... And here's the thing, too. He's not even technically... How do I put this? Because he's slightly taller than some dwarves. So, in essence, there's like this whole depiction of them almost being like regular people. So it's like he's not even talking for all dwarves. He's actually got it pretty good compared to a lot of them. So yeah, let's see. As a lot of my colleagues and myself rely on that work to get by. And it's just embracing your uniqueness, because when I play the part, they utilize my bodybuilding and other people's skills, which is exactly right. And when I'm playing the part, it makes me feel quite impressive, because I feel like the spotlight is on us, and it's quite a magical experience. And just to be on stage, it really helps my confidence. I think everyone who does it, they do it because they enjoy it. They wouldn't do it otherwise. I'd encourage Disney to stick to the original. So this is Chun Tan. So this is the guy, but he's not wrong in those cases. Like, how many little people actors have we been able to support over the last few years? Like Lord of the Rings alone did huge dedications to the Hobbit stand-ins, to the Gimli stand-in. I remember, like, I think he actually got to be able to go to some conventions after the extended editions came out, and they showcased him because they wanted to be able to see him do like the fight scenes and all that. So at that point, like, this is good for them. And he basically came in and wrecked it only to make himself relevant again. Ouch. Peter, that was the dumbest shit to do. So Tan further noted his fear that if Disney were to ultimately abide by Dinklage's request, the dwarf-specific roles would be eliminated from widespread productions altogether, as he believes it will have a knock-on effect because other people might think it might be derogatory to have a dwarf in a certain role. Which is funny, because he himself, Dinklage, got a role not because he was a dwarf, but because of his charisma. If for anybody who saw it was short-lived, the series Threshold on, I think it was CBS, Dinklage played a renowned, I think it was mathematician in that series, and they made him like a playboy and everything like that. This is not a typical dwarf role that would be given to somebody, and they gave it to Dinklage. Like, he has been able to benefit from, because he's taken on those dwarf roles. I'm sure Dinklage has. He's probably even done it on stage. But he was able to benefit from that. He got a legit role out of it. The fucking hypocrisy. Yeah, that's the way it goes. I've had people that have hired me for entertainment and stuff, and they have that concern as well, where they're like, oh, we weren't sure if we were going to book you, he recalled, but don't feel bad about it because I don't feel bad as long as you're being respectful. I'm here, I'm getting paid, and this is supporting me in my life. What he's basically saying, guys, is Dinklage doesn't want any other dwarf actor to get paid except for him. Because he's progressive. He's the one that pointed out this hypocrisy. He's the one that made it better. So he's the one that deserves the roles, right? Dude, and somebody just barely reminded me, he got Trask. Days of Future Past, he got Trask, the developer of the Sentinels. Every other depiction, I believe, of Trask is just a regular white dude. And Dinklage got that role. And everybody applauded it. Everybody thought he was great in that role. He figured it out very, very well. And there you go. He's been able to gain from his success, and so if anybody else gains that, fuck them. Fellow dwarf actor Zeta Ferry echoed Tan's sentiments, explaining to the outlet, I honestly feel that the shows are good for little people such as myself. If Disney didn't use dwarf actors, I do feel it takes that away from us. The entertainment industry is the biggest positive we have in our position, she noted before likewise accusing Dinklage of hypocrisy. Peter Dinklage made a vast amount of money in Game of Thrones, a series that saw him referred to as countless derogatory terms. Imp, I think he's referred to as goblin in it. He is actually referred to as a dwarf. Most of the time it's imp. Like, he gets called the imp. And yeah, he gets called countless derogatory terms, and he was still a beloved character for a lot of people, myself included. I've never read A Song of Ice and Fire, and I actually enjoyed Dinklage's performance more than most in that series, especially with what he was given. So if he was so against the use of the term dwarf or similar, or even dwarf actors, would he have been in the series at all? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, I believe Tyrion is described as a dwarf, so they would have hired somebody, but he's actually one of the better choices. Oh my gosh, and now we're referencing Hornswoggle. Adding his voice to the growing chorus of Dinklage's critics in a separate interview given to TMZ, Postel, or Hornswoggle, turned a more critical tone towards the actor's complaint, asserting, here's my issue. My issue with everything Peter Dinklage has said with this whole situation with the Snow White and the Seven Dwarves and the remake coming. It's Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. It's not Snow White and the Seven normal-sized humans like every other movie. Yeah! He elaborated, this is a fairy tale, a remake of a fairy tale, and this is also giving seven dwarves, people, real-life people, actors, a chance to star in a movie in a role that's fit for them. Literally fit for them. It's official. Peter Dinklage doesn't want dwarves to work. That's what he's basically saying. When The Greatest Showman came out, I couldn't be the main lead. I couldn't be P.T. Barnum, he said. I could have been one of the side acts because that role was made for me. And the issue at hand is, by saying this, he's doing something worse for the dwarf and the little people community. He's trying to take roles away. This is no different than having Al Sharpton come out of nowhere, have problems with how a president of a basketball organization runs things, and he boycotts the LA Dome. I don't know what it's called. But he boycotts that, and here's why it's not different. Because, yeah, he's affecting the guy who's paying all the bills, but you want to know who you're also affecting? If you can't open, then the nacho guy can't work. Then the janitors can't work. Then the ticket guys can't work. What Dinklage is basically saying is, okay, let's protest this. Nobody works. Because food magically appears on your table, right, Peter? magically appears on the table. Like, you never have to worry about it ever again. We all live in a Star Trek utopia. That's that's the world that you think we live in. Absolute horse shit. Postal then opined? What the hell are you saying? It really blows my mind, the whole woke thing. You're going too far, in my opinion. It's too far. It's too much. You're trying to change something that doesn't need to be changed. Oh, shit. Did they really do that? Oh. Sorry, I need a moment. Hornswoggle came out as AJ Styles. That's great. Good job for you, man. There was nothing wrong with how these dwarves were portrayed. He wants to say these cave dwellers, that's wrong, first off. They lived in a cottage. They worked, and they had a whole lot of gems, so in reality, they were rich, yes. Let's be honest here, in a fairy tale world, these guys were rich, and they had all had separate characteristics that made themselves different from each other. They weren't just being dwarves. Like both Tan and Fairy, Postal also claimed that Dinklage's criticism was drenched in hypocrisy, noting that the actor also had no issue being cast as a dwarf in Elf. Was he an elf? Yeah, I think he was, actually. When he was representing that whole situation, that paycheck cleared just fine. When he was in Game of Thrones, he had no issue when that role was cast for a dwarf. That paycheck cleared just fine. And that's exactly right. Yes, he was. He was an elf. It should be noted, however, that the punchline of Dinklage's appearance in Elf was not his dwarfism per se, but rather Buddy the Elf's obvious and offensive ignorance towards the fact that he is not an actual elf. Let's see. Now, this all of a sudden is crazy. This needs to be changed for current culture? Come on now. Ultimately, Disney, reach out to me. I will take every dwarf role you want. It could be Snow White and the 25 dwarves. I have 24 friends in the dwarf community that would do these roles. That's the issue here. Fucking awesome, Hornswoggle. All right? Now I don't feel dirty about liking the fact that you were the anonymous anonymous Raw general manager. Okay? That wonderful. I love you. Dinklage's grievances against Disney's upcoming live-action production were initially aired during a recent appearance on Marc Maron's aptly named podcast, WTF with Marc Maron, telling the comedian, well, it's really progressive to cast out, literally no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback by, they're very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, so, I mean, I had a problem with that too, but it's Disney, so there's no way you're going to tell them otherwise. Oh, and here we go. Here's another Dinklage one. Oh yeah, he was in Cyrano. Take a step back and look what you're doing here. It makes no sense to me because you're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of seven dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man? Okay, so ultimately, Dinklage has just been roasted this entire time, and duly so. Because ultimately, I don't even know if he realized that he was doing this. He was advocating that dwarves should never get hired again. Was that his intention? I don't know. I don't think it was. But ultimately, that's what came out of it and why people were upset with him, because he did that. And so everybody lashed out at Tyrion. Why? Because he showed himself for the little imp that he is. So with that being said, my opinion on that is, Dinklage, you didn't think this through. You actually have gained a lot more opportunities than most dwarf actors have ever been able to get. How many dwarf actors can say they did work for the MCU? Like, literally, how many dwarf actors can say they did work for the MCU? How many can say that they did work for Game of Thrones? How many people can say that they've done work that doesn't utilize them as a dwarf? Pot, meat, kettle. Holy shit. You are the literal example of somebody who has been able to rise up despite it. You are the dwarf success story. And you're saying, fuck those guys. Don't hire them. They're not progressive enough. Hire me. Bullshit. I'll go hire Hornswoggle. I'm actually surprised at the guy, so I'm happy about what he did there, and I hope that he I hope that this just blows up in Peter Dinklage's face. I have no problem saying that whatsoever. I love Peter Dinklage, but he has basically shown himself to be like every other Hollywood actor. You don't know shit. Maybe you ought to just, step out of that and do what you're good at doing. Okay? And I can already tell you right here and now, if there's any dwarfs out there that are not getting any of these roles or anything like that, they're trying to live normal lives, they ain't seeing any of your movies anymore. Congratulations, Peter. You done.